By 2015, Nolan Smith had seen a lot of Duke basketball. He'd been a fan of Jay Williams during the point guard's early 2000s stint as a Blue Devil star, then played 4 years in Durham himself, starting on Duke's 2010 national championship team. That was coach Mike Krzyzewski's fourth title, which he'd won the same way he'd won the 3 before it, with his Blue Devils playing the same aggressive, floor-slapping man-to-man defense that they played year in, year out. Which is why, as Smith took in a Duke game 3 years ago while rehabbing from knee surgery in Durham, he was taken aback to see the Blue Devils get back on defense and spread out, stake their spots and line up in his zone. "I was shocked," said Smith, who is now a special assistant on Krzyzewski's coaching staff. "I was like, what? Zone? What Duke team plays zone?" 3 years later, even as what was once heresy has become effective pragmatism, it can still seem bizarre to see Blue Devils defenders, not up in their opponents' jerseys but shuffling side to side with their arms out as the ball reverses, like indecisive crabs. But Duke today is not just a team that plays zone, it's a full-on zone team. According to Synergy Sports, in its last 11 games beginning with a Feb. 11 win at Georgia Tech, the Blue Devils have played zone on 94.4% of their defensive half-court possessions, which, subjectively, actually seems low. But more than just being surprising, that change is one of the primary reasons the No. 2 seed in the Midwest has emerged from the tournament's opening weekend looking like it could be the best team in the bracket. Krzyzewski's 2015 4A and 2 zone, which never reached the stage of full-time adoption, with the defense being used on just 6 possessions in Duke's national title win over Wisconsin, was born out of desperation in the pre-dawn hours of all-night coaches' meeting. After his team had been pick-and-rolled apart in consecutive games against NC State and Miami, Krzyzewski was ready to try just about anything. After 2 seasons of sporadic use, there were early inklings that we might see a revival, in no small part because this year's team, like the one in 2014-15, was so dependent on freshmen for whom a quick education in man-to-man intricacies is hard to ace. The Blue Devils played zone extensively in a preseason exhibition against Bowie State, then employed it effectively for stretches throughout their non-conference schedule. But coaches thought some of its effectiveness may have stemmed from the element of surprise, as opponents primarily prepped to face man-to-man. In the meantime, the Blue Devils' defense as a whole was ineffective and disconnected. By early February, despite being loaded with 5-star athletes and NBA prospects, Duke's adjusted defensive efficiency ranked in the 70s nationally. "The rotations were off," said freshman guard Gary Trent Jr. "The talk was off. A trip to New York provided the impetus for change." On Feb. 3, Duke played at Madison Square Garden against a St. John's team that had lost 11 in a row and came away with an 81-77 defeat in which it allowed a dismal 1.19 points per possession, roughly equivalent to what the country's 300th-ranked defense averaged this season. Krzyzewski called the performance disgusting, and the Blue Devils' next defensive showing was even worse, 1.26 points per possession in an 82-78 loss at North Carolina. Soon Blue Devils practices had a singular focus. "For a week straight," said sophomore forward Javin DeLauriere, "all we did was defense. Afterwards, the defense they played was different." Over those 2 losses, Duke had played 81.0% of its possessions in man-to-man. Its next time out, at Georgia Tech on Feb. 11, it played zone 81.82% of the time, allowing a more respectable 0.99 points per possession. 3 days later, at home against Virginia Tech, the commitment and results were both more extreme, zone on 52 of 53 half-court defensive possessions, and 0.89 PPP. "It just gradually happened," said assistant coach John Shire, who played for Krzyzewski from 2006 to 10 and has been on his staff since 2013. "It wasn't a thing where we just talked about it and," here Shire snapped his fingers. "To commit totally to it, it's a little surprising," he added. "But it's been smart and it's been good for us." Good might be an understatement. After defensive lapses dogged them for the season's first 3 months, the Blue Devils defended so well down the stretch, at one point holding Louisville and Syracuse to season-worst performances in consecutive games, that they ended up with the ACC's No. 2 defense during league play, behind only number 1 overall defense Virginia. The same Blue Devils who in early February ranked well outside the country's top 50 per possession defenses entered the NCAA tournament ranked in the top 10. "We have a lot of fun playing it," said DeLauriere, a 6 feet 10 inches forward whose floor time increased with the zone emphasis. "We do a better job of talking, which helps bring us together. Your head has to be on a swivel," said senior guard Grayson Allen. "You have to always be looking out where guys are. So there's no ball watching, no man watching like what can happen when they're playing man-to-man defense. Which is not to say the zone does not come with its own challenges, namely defensive rebounding, as defending an area rather than an individual can make boxing out more difficult, not to mention the zone's less natural fostering of aggression. Such challenges are not new to those with prior zone experience, though it's not clear anyone has experienced playing in one quite like this. The main difference between this one and other ones I played in, said Trent, it is my teammates are longer, taller, faster, stronger, 1 through 5. It's crazy, therein lies the truth strength of Duke's 2-3 zone setup. Wendell Laurier is on the floor, the zone's back line of he, Wendell Carter Jr. and Marvin Bagley 3 all stand either 6 feet 10 inches or 6 feet 11 inches, with wingspans to match and an athleticism rarely found in such groups. When that same lineup is paired with the 6 feet 5 inches Allen and 6 feet